Welcome to Coffee and Keys, where we blend our expertise and personal experiences to unlock your awareness of the real estate industry.
They're the best.
Here they are.
And now, here's your hosts, Darlene Kemp and Crystal Jacques.
We always say it's been a while. And this time it's been a long while because we both have been so busy.
Busy is a good thing in our industry, right?
Busy is a good thing. So
yeah.
Just to catch up, and I know we catch up almost on the daily, but just to catch people up, let's see. My daughter got married. That was the big one.
Yeah, absolutely. How amazing. Yeah.
What a beautiful
gorgeous
wedding.
Yeah.
She made a beautiful bride. And
I bet. And happily ever after, right?
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We love our new son-in-law, so
that's a good thing.
it better be happily ever after, so I'm coming after him.
There you go.
So we both have been, we both have done some traveling. I've been back and forth to your neck of the woods in Hampton Roads, just getting back and, listed a couple of homes and,
Yeah, and we've been busy and hitting a couple seminars and doing some educational stuff, and so it's kind of been fun that way too. So
and getting educated,
in this ever changing world, which is kind of cool of our topic today. Talk about ever changing world, right?
That's right. So I don't know how we came up with this topic. But I just sat down with a seller just a couple of days ago. And so everything that I was telling her, she was like, well, that's what ChatGPT said. Well, that's what ChatGPT said. So I think that's maybe how we came up with this topic of
AI. Yeah. AI, artificial intelligence, or and how that it really affects us. And I think from a buyer's point of view, they kind of want to know, how are you using it? Or the bigger question is, where do you see it in the future? There's always that big fear. Oh, can AI really take my job? Can it replace me as a person?
That.
Yeah.
I read real estate on daily. And so I've read that over and over again, that agents and loan officers are going to be replaced by AI.
And, that could happen on some transaction in a perfect world with a perfect client, but we're all human, so we're not all perfect. Sometimes we just need a little hand-holding. Kind of hard to be handheld by a computer, right? So,
by a computer. Well, I'm experiencing that now, and you and I just talked about that before you press the go button. Yeah. But I'm in a transaction now that I would love to hand it over to AI if I could.
Fix this.
Fix this. Explain this. Research this. Go here. And get this information.
Yeah. And maybe one day, and I think that's the biggest thing that they're talking about is AI and ML, or machine learning, where the machines are actually learning how to do their job better and better and better. And in all honesty, I mean, as far as artificial intelligence and the computers, I mean, the mortgage industry and the real estate industry have been using them for years without really people understanding what they were called, or that they called them artificial intelligence, right? I mean, if you think about, and again, I'm going to go and tell everybody my age, but way back when we originally got in the business, the credit reporting has come a long way as far as in the mortgage industry goes, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't have credit scores when I first started doing this. We had to literally review the credit report, look at how many lates, look if there's any collections, look at, to really kind of review it and not just use a credit score, right? Mm-hmm. And the credit score, if you think about it, is just, algorithms. And there's, 1,000 different algorithms that they use based on what you're applying for and what you want to do and where that credit score would come in, whether you're applying for a house or applying for a car, applying for a credit card or Credit Karma. All your scores may come in differently because they're using different algorithms to come up with that answer. But we've been using them for years as far as credit scores now. So it's just, progressing a little bit more to where we can use it more. So, yeah.
And definitely we're seeing the change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So where do you see some of the changes as far as real estate and how AI is going to be used in real estate in the future.
Oh gosh. Okay. So when I have a buyer and they, I tell them, well, I'm going to send you some homes and let me know which ones you like. Well, I'm setting it up on an AI automatic feed is what we call it.
Yeah.
And some people don't understand that. I'm happy to explain it if they're curious about how they're getting these. But there's people that think I'm sitting behind a computer 24/7 and saying,
Just
oh, they'll
sending them
like this one. Oh, they like that one. Oh, they'll love this one.
Not like the old days, because in the old days, that is how we did it.
That is how you did it.
Yeah.
But, we have the one home system in Hampton Roads that just, it kind of automatically, I feed in information, based on a conversation that I had with the buyer, and then it chooses homes based on that information. I do set mine up that I get a copy of what goes out to them. So I know what they're looking at, because 9 times out of 10, I get a call or a text. Oh, I like that one that you just said. I can go back and see which one that is, and take it from there. So I use it daily, multiple times a day. And then, of course, there's property searches and matches that buyers, they'll go on the internet if they're not getting a feed from their agent. And those programs learn the behavior of the buyer, and it will automatically send, homes based on the behavior.
Whatever they've searched or whatever they've done. Yeah. To where you're having a one-on-one conversation with a buyer and say, what are you really looking for? What's important to you? Where do you want your sales price? What are you approved for? Right. So you're narrowing that search down for them. When it comes to computers and when they talk about AI and things like that, I mean, really, isn't it all about input in, input out?
That is true.
So, and then when these computers are learning everything, it depends on what you've given it to learn so that it can help figure things out for you. So, I mean, as far as the mortgage world, more and more AI is being used, and it really is just trying to help the cost of processing a loan, because it's going to help streamline some of the processes, but it also helps in trying to identify risk. Right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, we've been using AI for a long time on things called automated underwriting systems. So, but again, I'm talking to the borrower, getting some information. They may even apply online and put in some basic information. But again, we try to review it, because input in is going to give you input out. If you put the wrong information in, you say, oh, yeah, they're approved. Yeah, but you didn't look at that. They're not working 40 hours a week. They're only working 32. It's going to make a huge difference in whether or not they actually qualify. Right. So if you put the wrong thing in, you're going to get the wrong thing out.
So that's kind of like the difference between a pre-qual and an approval, because the information that you're receiving and putting in is based on the pre-qual is based on that information.
Right. So when we talk to a borrower, they'll say, yeah, well, I make about this, this is my hourly rate. I work this many hours a week. This is, so they're giving us what they believe to be true. But until we actually see the documentation, that could change what that input is. So a pre-qualification basically just says, based on what I've been told, this is what we, then they're approved, they're pre-approved, all right, or pre-qualified. But once I've gotten verifications of employment, I've gotten W-2s and pay stubs, and I've gotten bank statements, and I've seen everything, then the stuff that we're inputting is correct.
It's correct.
Yeah. But AI is even taking it a step further. Now we can actually pull verifications of employment depending on, who the employer uses for their pay. If it's ADP or Workforce or whatever, they may have somebody that does automated verifications of employment. So I can pull somebody's verification the same as I can pull a credit report of employment, as long as it's there. Same with bank statements. We can pull them right away. So when those automated underwriting systems pull in that stuff automatically, then they don't even have to provide some of that information sometimes. I think that's where it's going to eventually come to. But again, they also are using AI to, pull from many different resources like credit bureaus and tax records and, things like that. Just, even to identify things like fraud. So that's a big one that tries to really kind of identify that. So if you're on the good side of AI, it can be great. If you're on the bad side of AI, you might need a real person. Yeah. Yeah.
So is it speeding up the process, do you think, to the process of the transaction for you?
Well, yeah. And there's a lot of different things going on from, hey, our system is set up so that every time a loan hits a certain milestone, it's going to automatically let everybody know where the process is at. And it's just hit processing. It's just hit underwriting. It's just, and these things are done automatically to where in the old days, I would have to physically, hey, this just happened. And I'd have to coordinate everything else. And now it's really, the system is set up with those, parameters, and it just kind of automatically does that for us. So it just helps us to keep everybody involved. So it helps us to let everybody know where the transaction is at and how it's going and things like that. So it automatically can kind of help us communicate. But again, I still believe that this is a people business, and, sometimes you get so many emails, you're really not reading them anyway. Right. And that's when it's good to pick up the phone or to, even text nowadays is something that a lot of people like to communicate with. So it's just communicating the way that your borrowers and clients want to. You can't rely on just the AI information. You have to really get to know people. Yeah.
Well, I think you just get general information from AI, because I kind of put it to a test today.
Yeah.
With the situation that I have going on. So I went to AI, went to Chat GPT and said, explain this to me. Well, it just gave me general information. It didn't tell me the information I needed for the state of Virginia, even though I said Virginia in my, request. So you just getting, you kind of get general, basic information.
It can only feed you back what it's been fed.
Right.
So if it hasn't been fed that correct information, it's not going to give that to you. And here's the thing too, you and I both know that if you're just in general on the internet, there's a lot of old or misleading information out there. So what if it's picking up, so how do you know you're getting it from the real source, especially when I'm dealing with things like, VA loans and FHA loans and people are going out there and trying to find information. I'm going to the source. If I'm going to talk to somebody about a VA loan or VA guidelines, I'm going to the one who's going to write the guidelines, not just somebody who wrote an article 2 years ago that said that it was this way. And now guidelines change all the time. Now it's not the same anymore. So again, it's just, you got to make sure that you're dealing with the right information, and you can have somebody cross-check it for you that's in the industry and knows the good from the bad, I guess.
It's so what does a buyer trust? Because I go through this daily, maybe on I guess valuation models. So CMAs, current market analysis. So you're sitting in front of a seller. And I do it not physically, but I go through, properties that have closed that are very similar to your property. Whereas they can go online, they plug in their address, and then here we are.
Automatic search based on
automatic search says that your house is worth this amount, but Crystal is just sitting there and saying it's not worth that, it's worth this. So they're, they get confused. Who do they trust?
Who are you trusting? Right. What's the old saying? If it's on the internet, it must be true, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that the computer's not going to pick up on, like that house is located next to a really busy highway, and this one is not. A computer's really not going to pick that out. Or if you're not, an example I was given this is somebody who was in the mountains, and they said, your driveway is like, this really, really steep, and yet this one's not. That could make a difference on whether or not somebody would buy one house over another. Right. And, let's face it, what is your house really worth?
Or your house is updated.
Right.
And that house wasn't. Or vice versa.
Right. Or that was a distressed sale. In other words, they were behind on their payments. They needed to sell really fast, or it's a divorce situation, or it's an estate sale, or, there's a lot of other reasons that could be behind the reason why that sold for the price that it did.
Right.
So the computer is just going to take statistics where you can really narrow down some of those searches a lot better in person. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm going to get replaced anytime soon.
No, yeah.
At least not by my clients.
And in the mortgage industry, when you talk about investors and risk and things like that, I mean, basically what they're hoping AI will do in the future is I guess anybody who has money that they want to lend, right? They want to know really how risky is that borrower, right? And then you have so many loan files to work on. Which ones do you work on first? Well, the scary part is AI could be saying, hey, look, based on statistical facts and this, that, and the other, then this person's more likely to actually close the loan and this one's not. So you need to work on this one. And all those other people get left behind.
Right.
So we're hoping that we have some real people there that are just going to not just look at bottom line dollars, but look at these are real people. Yes, it's going to be based on risk, and a lender wants to know that if I'm going to lend money, what are the chances of me getting paid back, right? Or how things like that, and so their rates and all that are going to be based off what the statistical findings will show. Mm-hmm. But if you've got a borrower who's had life happen to them, and what do we say? Just wait. If life hasn't happened to you yet, it will.
It will.
So eventually. So life happens to us all eventually because we're human, right? Mm-hmm. So the AI statistics, may not take into to all those factors, that and so sometimes somebody just needs help knowing what those next steps are going to be, and I think that's going to come from real people. That's something a little harder that could come from AI. I mean, Chat GPT will tell you, well, to build credit, do this, do that, based on the credit models, based on the algorithms that, that they use to figure out what credit scores are. So you got to kind of know what that AI model has been taught so that you know what you can put in and what you can't. But I think there'll always be an opportunity for real people to want to deal with real people, because this is real life. And this is, the scary part is that the AI systems are going to make it so that only the perfect get loans. And I don't think that's the case. So we'll always need people out there like us to really help people facilitate through that process. Well, the AI
can't replace our experience, what we've seen, what roads we've walked down,
Yeah. Yeah. And we've always said, especially when you're dealing with primary property, right? Investment property may be a little bit different, but primary property, it's all about emotion. What sells houses? Right. Emotion sells houses, right? So how much emotion is in AI?
Zero.
So it's gonna base its decisions based on statistics, which, I get that, especially if you're an investor. But if you're a borrower who just wants to feel comfortable in a house, it's going to be the emotions that's going to sell and drive that borrower. Right. So they're going to want to deal with people who can understand that and help them through that process. So I think it'll always be a people business, at least I hope so. Yeah.
I think it will. I agree with you 100%. I think it will be a people business.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, more and more people are, using, I have a mortgage app, and it just makes it nice if somebody goes on there and starts that process and fill in the information, and it automatically populates into my computer. It makes it really easy for me to pull credit. And then it makes it easy for me to analyze what I think after speaking with the borrower, then we can come up with a plan, and it just makes it a lot easier, quicker, maybe, to where, before it would take me a couple hours to analyze something. Now, it could take me couple minutes because the computer's done a lot of the hard work for us. But we still want to make sure that we look at it and that we're putting in there what people are really looking for and what's important to them.
So the last couple of listings that I've had, a transaction is usually 30 to 45 days. Yeah. 30 comfortably, 45 days if you're trying to drag it out. So the last couple of transactions that I had as a listing agent, they've closed within 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do nowadays.
Yeah, it is. And I had to wonder, Does AI have anything to do with that? What extra help are they getting on the back end that the loan officer does not have to do?
Well, a lot of it comes down to the documentation either. It's quick to order verifications of employment. It's quick to, they can upload their bank statements. They're really not even having to upload. They just log on and they put in their username and password and we get what we need from that, right? So everything's quick that way. But there's also, when you're looking at the loan programs, we can get things called appraisal waivers. So on certain conventional loans, when they're putting down so much money, if the computer thinks that it's worth it, we don't even have to have an appraisal on those, right? Those are usually the things that takes the longest.
Is that becoming common?
I've seen quite a few of them here recently. And again, it just depends on the property, where it's located and how much, the computer has to deal with it on that property and how risky or close to that value. So normally if somebody's putting 20 or 30% down, a lot of times it'll give it, as long as it's, a realistic sales price based on their, automated underwriting findings. But, so I think everybody's job's made a little bit quicker and easier by using some of the AI models. And the only reason I think we can't close them faster sometimes is more on a compliance end. And definitely compliance is one place that they're looking to really use the AI to try to help identify things by quickly verifying third-party authorizations, and really identifying fraud, identifying, where it's really easy to put in, documents can kind of easily make sure that you have all the documents is in compliance, all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, those kind of things that can really bog down the back room of a mortgage company. AI can really help on those things. So I think we're going to see a lot of streamlining based on that. Hopefully it'll be catching a lot more fraud and things like that, that are as an expense. And so, the more AI is used for the good, then that is good for the client because, less of a risk, better pricing, right?
Yeah.
So, and if they don't have to worry about, fraud or defaults, you can give better interest rates, right? So you always hope that the AI is going to be better for everybody all around. However, you still have to make sure that you're dealing with all clients and not just cherry picking.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you say that, because currently we can write an offer, we can accept an offer, but there's a girl behind the curtain that we send our contracts to, and she's the one, when you get that email saying you're missing this, you're missing that. I mean, she actually reviews every contract out there, and it makes sense because it's a second set of eyes, because you know me, I've written many contracts sitting on an airplane or sitting in a restaurant. Right. You've been across from me doing that, So will AI do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Those are the things that are really coming up quickly, to where you can just upload documents and it can automatically scan it and make sure it's done correctly. So they're already using AI for a lot of that technology. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think you'll see. So I think when it talks about streamlining and helping back rooms that way, hopefully what that means is we can spend more one-on-one time with our clients, because the AI is taking care of all this other stuff that most people don't even realize we have to do, but it takes hours to do to get this compliance and paperwork and everything, in the right stream. Right. So if we can use AI to help, streamline some of that processes, that could be a good thing. But that's mainly so that now we can spend more one-on-one time with real people trying to figure out what they're really looking for. Because everybody's an individual, right? And they need to be treated like an individual. And I don't think AI will ever take that place.
No, I can't imagine it would. I mean, I don't know how it would. I mean, you and I kind of got on the topic of showings and AI, and it wasn't a showing; it was a home tour that I did, and I mean, it was you had the QR code. Hold your phone up. Then this thing popped up, and I put in some information. It gave me a code. Press the button, and it unlocks the door, and I went in. I don't think that I didn't look too into it. I thought it was cool that I could do it, but I don't think the person I was with could have done that without me.
Right.
I think I had to put in some realtor information, even though I was in another state that I wasn't licensed in. I still think I had to put my license number and the state that I am licensed in there for us to get in that door. So where does that go from here as far as AI taking over showings? I don't think it could.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
I mean, yeah, think about it. It may be able to open a door. It may be able to let somebody in. But is it going to be able to really point out what's important to the borrower? Is it going to be able to really, look at negotiating terms to fit the borrower? Exactly. So yeah, it may be able to open a door, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I still think you need the expertise of a one-on-one conversation so that your client is getting exactly what they need, because they're the difference there. And every property is a little bit different, right?
Right.
So, and things are important to different people. They have different things that are important to them. So I think you're always going to have that emotion, AI doesn't have that emotion. And so investors are thinking that's great because, emotions get in the way for investors. But we've talked about over and over again in real estate, what really sells real estate is the emotion. It's the emotion when they walk through the door and they're feeling at home and things like that. And if they feel like it's a computer, it's a little cold, right?
You can't turn to the computer and say, "What do you think?"
Yeah. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk something through, right?
Right.
You just need that emotional guidance, to think about, am I overexcited? Is this really real? Is this something that we can do? I don't know that AI is going to become a person that can hold your hand through a process like that. That's so emotional. Yeah. And negotiations, I mean, talk about an emotional thing to do. That's going to be hard for AI to do as far as that goes, because, you've got a seller that loves their house that they were in, right? So, you've got all those feelings built in there, and then you've got a buyer that wants it, but they don't want to overpay for it, or they want a deal, or, some things are important to them. So, I think you're always going to need, especially in negotiations, real people.
You need a human.
To real people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So who knows what the future holds? I mean, if you think about it, we've come a long way in 30 years since I've been in the industry. I mean, starting out in real estate 30 years ago, we didn't have a computer where people could go and look at houses, right? We didn't have, I mean, if they wanted to find information about a house, guess what they had to do? They had to walk through the door of the office. So people really needed you then, right? And so I know it's come a long way, but still, I think with all the technology, people are really more important, even to help guide you through that technology.
I think so.
Yeah,
I agree, because that the human aspect is getting left behind in a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think we were just talking. Try calling a business anymore. You don't have a phone number. You don't get a human.
Yeah, they want you to chat online.
Yeah, they want you to chat, and that that's AI you're chatting with, right?
Yeah. Most of the time it is. Or I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Yeah, because you didn't understand my question.
That's right. I'm Rosie the robot.
Yeah. Although the technology, it's coming a long way. I've seen some things where people are actually answering phones and you wouldn't even know it was a computer.
I know.
That's the scary part.
That's the scary part of it.
That you don't even know you're not talking to a real person.
Yeah, I've put a couple of those to the test.
Yeah.
And I go, I'm eating a hamburger. Oh, glad to hear it. Well, why I'm calling?
Yeah. Or nowadays with the technology, I mean, my phone has been crazy, with cutting people off and not hearing me and things like that. I'm thinking, can you imagine when computers are having a bad day?
Yeah, you get nothing done. Zero. Everything shuts down.
Yeah, all of a sudden the internet's done and you're like, okay, nobody can work.
Nobody can work. That's right.
You can get so reliant on it, yeah.
I went into a bank and they're like, I'm sorry, I can't give you your money because the computer's down. I go, but you have my money. You can't give it to me because there's no computer.
Or how about, I'm sorry, it didn't recognize your face, so you must not be you.
That's right. No, I understand that. On the seller side, just kind of, and I know that's not, your side of it, but, I've been using AI a lot on the seller
for listings.
side. Yes.
To help streamline the whole process. Yeah.
We do virtual staging now.
Yeah.
Well, there's no furniture in the pictures, but we can actually stage furniture in the pictures. And so a lot of people don't know. Well, now we have to disclose it. That's fairly new.
Which kind of makes sense. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to look at this property. Is this really what it's going to look like when I get there?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're not selling the furniture. You're selling the property.
The house, the property.
Yeah. So, but
the furniture just creates the emotion around it, right?
The furniture, sometimes the furniture creates the desire for somebody to go in the house.
Exactly.
They're like,
the more people that look at it,
the
more people that look at it, the more chances are you're going to have a contract written, right?
Yeah, but like I said, it's fairly recent that we have to disclose this now. But when we didn't have to disclose it, if I had a vacant home, I would use, virtual furniture, or I'd pay my photographer to put it in there. And so
he'd use his system.
So I would get these texts or emails from agents before they show the house. Well, on the patio, is that furniture for sale? Like, no, it's not. It's virtual. Oh, okay. Well, let me see if my buyer wants to see the house. So I think, for reasons like that, I think that's why we now have to disclose, which again, to me, the furniture is not, we are not in that business to sell furniture.
As long as you're not doing things like, because you're not allowed to remove things anymore. Like if there was power lines or something like that, you can't take those out.
You can't take those out. You can't color the grass. That's always been like that as far as I know.
You can't change things to be what they're not.
Grass where there's no grass.
Or add a detached garage when there's not one.
There's not one. So that I understand because that pertains to the property itself. But when you have furniture in there, that we are not in that business. We are not furniture salesmen. We're home salespeople. So now we have to disclose that. Now I'm starting to recognize when people use AI to do property descriptions. Because you get the same thing in everyone, the same term.
Same term.
But I do use it. I use Chat GPT, and then I go in and change it to add things to it that pertain to my property. But it's
make it more personal.
Yeah, make it more personal. Yeah, but some people don't do that, and you could go to property A and property C, and it's got the exact same description.
Right. Well, what about home inspections? I had a home inspector talk to me about using AI. So when they go in and do the home inspection, they put everything in the report, and then they use AI to spit out the important stuff.
Yeah, they do that. So you wonder how it used to be when I first started in real estate. You used to have to wait 3 days to get
because that's a lot of stuff to go through. Yeah.
But now you get it standing right there.
Right there. Yeah. So you've got to have that computer that can analyze it all and put it all together and spit it out for you. So that makes, rather than have to go back and do all the research on it, it's all right there. So
it's all right there.
Yeah. So technology can be, good in some ways. You just don't want it to take over the person.
No, you don't. And I don't think it ever could. Like I said, AI can't replace my experience and the things that I've seen and the situations that I've been in. And, the results from some of the situations that I've been in, because I am dying to see the results of the septic issue that I have going on.
Right.
But
Right.
AI can't replace that. And so when I sit down in front of a client and I say, well, my experience has been, or I've had that experience, and you know what? The end result was this. AI can't change that.
Right.
And it can't replace that.
Right. Right. Because you've built those experiences over years, and they're localized to the area that you're working in.
Right.
And, so we hope that it streamlines it. We hope that it makes the process easier so that we can help more clients, and that we could be there for them more if the AI can take over the back end stuff. But I still think it's important to
have the agent.
Yeah.
Have the agent and the loan officer in the front side.
Right. Talking to real people, because we're real people.
We are real people. And like I said, the more homes you close, the more experience you have. And sometimes on one transaction, you have multiple experiences, but you can't replace that. It's as much as I'm reading that AI eventually is going to replace agents and loan officers. You can't convince me of that just yet. I don't know. I haven't seen everything, but
yeah. There'll always be, I think, a need. Yeah, some of the the people who have done it 100 times, and they can just go online and input their information and upload it, and they don't need to talk to anybody. They'll always be. I'm sure there'll be those scenarios and those situations, and they're probably already happening now. I know some people can do loans and say, "Oh, I've never even talked to anybody." Okay, but there'll always be that person that says, I've got this situation and I really need to talk to somebody about it. I want to know what my options are. I want to know what, I want you to explain it to me in terms that I can understand.
Right.
And I think that that's where the real people are going to come in.
Yeah. So, the buyer that thinks they can represent themselves, because we're starting to see that, with the changes to the industry. And they think that AI is going to guide them
through that process.
Through the process. In every transaction, there's a hiccup. Even the smoothest transactions that I've ever had, there is always a hiccup, and there is always that human interaction that gets you over that hump.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say a really good, smooth transaction means you've dealt with a professional that has handled every situation before it arises.
That's right.
And has been able to handle things before they become an issue because of their experiences, why you had a smooth transaction, right?
That's true.
So that's, Yeah. We've definitely come a long way in the last 30 years in the industry. So it's going to be exciting to see where the next 30 years.
I don't think I'm going to be around, Darlene. Now, you've got a good 20 years on me already.
I know. Age-wise, I don't think so.
I was going to say 30 years? No, I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah. I've seen some agents out there that seem to be, when you love what you do it until you can't.
Until you can't. And I always say that's going to be me, but it ain't going to be 30 years. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Not another 30 years. But it is a fun ride. It is. If you like learning, this is the place to be, because I learn something every day. And I experience something new in almost every transaction.
Just when you think you've seen it all, you get something else. You're going, well, I never thought.
I've never had. That's exactly
that's
where
a new
I
one
am
on
today.
On that septic.
That's right. On the septic.
What do they call that light that you need on the
a UV light?
UV light on a septic tank.
On a septic tank.
Yeah. That's something.
I've been around for a lot of septic inspections, and I've listed several homes that have septic systems. But this, and I'm representing the buyer on this one, it's a little different because this septic system is more advanced. Maybe it's got AI buried in there somewhere, because it's more advanced than I've ever seen.
Turns on the light when needed. But yet Yeah. But yet you said it was still hooked up with an extension cord?
Right. So the first question is, why does it have to have power? That's
to turn the pumps on.
Yeah. That's the first question that I had. And then the second question is, and it's running on an extension cord? So why? I mean, that sparked me, and that's why we were a little late getting started today, because it sparked me to call the Department of Health, and then I called the designer.
The septic system.
The Department of Health told me who designed the system, who actually went in and did the blueprints. So I called that person, and I said, I know I sound silly here, but why has it got electric running to it? And so it's just a more advanced system,
Yeah.
That I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. We've got electric running ours too, mainly for like alarms and things like that.
Alarms, pumps, alarms, and UV lights.
Yeah. So technology comes a long way in all aspects, right?
It sure does. But maybe it's got AI buried underneath somewhere and it's telling it what to do. I don't know. But I was there for that inspection, and I mean, I was like, well, this is pretty fancy.
Yeah. So just imagine what it's going to be in a few years. It'll be fun.
I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did say this one was going to be short because it's just our opinion, people. We don't know what's coming.
I always say, I wish I had a crystal ball, especially in the mortgage industry with interest rates to know what's going to happen in the future. I wish I had a crystal ball, but I say let's deal with today and make it happen, right?
Okay, so you've been in the real estate industry in various capacities over the past 30 years. Did you ever see real estate being where it is today? As
far as
we're talking
the market,
the market too, but that is
technology.
That's a cycle. We know that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The cycles and markets, they're going to go up and down. I actually did courses and looked at history all the way back to the Great Depression and what are some things that was happening in the time frame when markets went through different shifts. But we're always going to have that. As far as the technology, I mean, like I said, it is coming a long way. I mean, come on. I can remember the first car phone. It was
I was
huge.
Not in real estate then.
It did not look like this at all. It was, oh my gosh. It was huge. It was a box. You needed a shoulder strap to carry it around.
But they were
and they had to be installed in your car.
They were doing real estate without car phones and cell phones.
They weren't. Oh, yeah, because I can remember the pager, because we used to have to carry around the pager. And the minute somebody paged us, we had to go pull over.
Oh, gosh.
Have our quarters, find a payphone. That's how we called people back. And we had to do it right.
What is that?
Yeah, right? We always had change. So when the pager went off, you had to go to the phone and make sure you called them back right away, because when they paged you, they were sitting by the phone like this, just waiting for you to call them back.
Oh, my gosh. So I heard about the big, right now we have the MLS where we could go look up stuff, they've kind of had a variation of the MLS, but I heard that once a week they came out with this big book that you had to flip through.
Yeah. With all the listings in it. And then they kind of update. And we used to keep these little index cards in a file box too on new listings before they got in the book. But yet, then technology started where, oh my gosh, we had this little computer that, looked like a fax machine, sounded like a fax machine. And if you remember the, little rotary dial phones or whatever. We take that and we put it on there and we dial that phone number, and then we hear bzz, 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 just like the fax machine, and we put in BR equals 2+. Bedrooms 2+. That's how we used to do our searches originally. Yeah.
That's how you did your searches.
Then we've come a long way. Yeah. We used to we'd have to put in the codes, and then it would spit out certain addresses, and we thought that was the greatest thing ever. Yeah, I'm definitely showing my age. So I'm trying to say, if we can come this far in 30 years, can you only imagine what the next 30 years is going to be like?
Look, I can't
but it's just
imagine.
and it's just made our job easier. Yeah. I mean, in those days, people really needed us because they had to come into the front door of the office, but you could only handle so many clients at a time because there was so much, that you had to do by hand. And nowadays, all that stuff is automated, so you can handle a few more clients and you can spend more time with people. And I think that's what technology has done. Yeah.
Can you imagine the things you had to, can you imagine what you had to remember back then? Now we just go on and pull it up.
Yeah. All the codes, BR equals 2 plus.
I remember in 2006 is when I got into real estate, and I was an assistant to an agent. And so I remember putting together the contracts because they had the what is that?
Carbon
paper.
Press hard, 3 copies.
Yes. And then I remember she'd come back after writing the contract, and I'd have to separate everything, a pile, page 1 in this pile, page 2 in this pile. And, I mean, now it's crazy because we just go on to a computer and we just type in, on lines, what goes on each line. I mean, you still got to know the contract backwards and forward, the purchase agreement, but,
mainly so you can explain it to the borrower, right?
Yeah.
So
or you put the correct information on the correct
right
line.
Place.
Yeah. Right. But we don't have to sit there and write it out. Can you imagine making a mistake? And then you got to rip that page up. And
are you kidding? We used to have to type our original loan applications in a real typewriter with Carbon.
Oh, no way. And so if you made a mistake, what did you have to do? What is that?
No whiteout in the mortgage business. No whiteout in the mortgage business. You had to retype that thing.
Oh, gosh. Thank God for AI.
Thank God for technology and the improvements and how far we've come. So hopefully that's what everybody will say in the future with all these new coming technologies. And it sounds kind of, scary when you think that a computer can replace a person, but I think so. They're always going to have a need for people, and maybe it'll get people out of the office and more connected one-on-one and be real people, right? Again, so
yeah.
That's what we can have it for.
So I guess right now we use it in our industry and what we do, but pertaining to buyers and sellers, it's just hard information. If you need information, but call your agent in the end. To verify and confirm.
If you need guidance and to make sure the information you received is correct, because again, there is a lot of bad information out there. Input in, input out. You put the wrong stuff in, you're going to get the wrong stuff out.
Yeah.
So you still need somebody who understands the industry to be able to walk you through those processes.
Definitely.
So, anyway.
All right.
And then we'll have to just think about what our next. Yeah, that was topic. That was fun.
Yeah.
A lot different than I thought it might be.
We can't be replaced.
Can't be replaced. No.
That's all right.
No replacing me, and I know there's no one that's going to replace you.
Why, thank you, darling.
We're all unique.
We are in many ways. All right.
So now we'll have to think about another great topic to start talking about. We kind of enjoy having our conversations together.
Yeah. And hopefully it won't be so long this time.
Right. Sooner the better.
Sooner the better.
All right.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Coffee and Keys is brought to you by Darlene Kemp, VP, Senior Loan Officer, NMLS ID 173897. Atlantic Coast Mortgage, LLC is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 643114. www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. And Crystal Jacques, Realtor for both RE/MAX Allegiance, 4000 Virginia Beach Boulevard, Suite 164, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23452. Office phone 757-490-7300. And RE/MAX Professionals, 20,241 North 67th Avenue, Suite A1 Glendale, Arizona, 85308. Office phone 623-362-3000. Each office is independently owned and operated and supports the Fair Housing Act and Equal Opportunity Housing.